Welcome to Centerpoint's Dive In with Matt and Joe.
In this podcast, we're filling in gaps and diving deeper into topics and passages related to the Sunday messages at Centerpoint Church.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Joe. Let's dive in.
Well, here we are, Matt and Joe together, coming off a fantastic weekend of football. Joe, what was that like for you, watching your Eagles?
Well, you know, when I was a kid, I actually had rewritten the entire Eagles fight song from Fly, Eagles, Fly to Die, Eagles, Die. Because it was so depressing being an Eagles fan growing up. And yesterday was not a good day to be an Eagles fan.
Yeah, I thought for sure you guys had that one locked in.
Should have.
Yeah.
But didn't happen.
No, it didn't. So then there was only one team left in the NFL that was undefeated. The Buffalo Bills, who are a juggernaut.
I know.
Hosting the hapless New England Patriots.
I went to bed going, I hope the Patriots somehow win this game.
So I want to dedicate this show to my oldest son, who is a rabid Bills fan.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
He is. That's right.
He is. So, we got to text late at night.
Oh, boy.
And I'm still teaching him trash talk. He's learning, but I'm still better. So I did get to enjoy that. Go Pats.
Yeah, so before we started recording, we had to look up, and it took some digging. We had stumped multiple AI with this question, but we were trying to figure out when is the last time the Eagles lost and the Pats won in the same week of football.
Playing different teams. That was the part that seemed to be confusing.
Yeah, it was probably on us
AI.
and how we were asking it. We go back to pre-pandemic. What even is pre-pandemic? In 2019, week 11, this happened. So it has been a long time. I had forgot what it feels like to lose.
And I forgot what it felt like to win. And it's preferable. I like this.
Preferable.
And so Joe might be a little extra saucy today.
I'm coming in punchy.
And that's part of the fun.
But I was excited about the Pats win.
I was excited about the Pats win too. I did feel a little bit bad for my son, but only a little bit. Because yeah. So there's that. And I know you guys all tuned in to this because you needed to hear about football.
Absolutely.
But 'tis the season. And baseball season in Boston is done, thanks to the Yankees.
Go Blue Jays.
But it's Blue Jays season.
Go Blue Jays.
Anybody who can embarrass the Yankees 2 games in a row is okay by me. Go Blue Jays.
That did bring me some joy.
Yeah, that's right. That's fun. So we're talking today a little bit about cursing.
Wait.
Not in the, hey, I bought tickets in the bleachers and I can't take my kids kind of cursing.
Oh, boy.
But the kind of cursing that comes against trees. What did a tree do for this? So we're in this moment. I'm not sure what kind of an intro that was to our time. We are in Mark, predominantly in Mark chapter 11. There's going to be we're going to scoot around a little bit beyond that, but we're hanging out in Mark chapter 11. At first glance, these might be like flyover territory when you're reading the Gospels. Like, oh, okay. So we get the triumphal entry. Okay, that's cool. I like that part. But then this other stuff around trees and figs and what is going on here? And Joe, you've done some great digging, and I want you to lead us into this this rabbit hole, if you would. This notion that Jesus has turned his face toward Jerusalem, because this is a key turning point in the narrative of Jesus's life. He's not been avoiding Jerusalem, but he's just made little incursions, if you will, and there's been little skirmishes with the religious leaders in Jerusalem. But there's something shifting as Jesus turns his face toward Jerusalem. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's really significant. I think we touched on this in our last podcast, but he's going into the lion's den willingly here as he heads to Jerusalem. There's no way that this is going to end well for him. Everybody knows that he is a wanted person by the religious leaders who continue to try to get Rome to see he's stirring up trouble.
Yeah, they want to do away with him for any number of reasons.
Right, so they want him dead.
Right.
So it's not going to end well.
But they're afraid of the crowd because the crowd's with Jesus.
Correct.
And so they're trying to play politics.
Yeah.
So the confrontation is heating up.
It is. So this is a bit of a powder keg waiting to blow up as he makes his way back to Jerusalem. So what's interesting in the Gospel of Luke, there's thematically times throughout his gospel where he will talk about how Jesus turned to Jerusalem. And in Luke chapter 9 is one of the first places that we see this. Verse 51 says, Jesus set his face for Jerusalem. And it's just he's gonna ratchet it up more in his gospel as we get closer. But what's fascinating is this picture of Jesus setting his face to Jerusalem. So Mark is not using that phrase overtly, but we're looking at Luke here. And it's important because this carries over into Jesus' ministry regardless of the gospel that we're reading. So this image of he set his face, it's this picture of resoluteness and steadfastness. He has a mission that is cosmic, and he wants to embrace that mission, knowing that it's going to cost him his life.
And you've probably seen people that have set their face in a direction. Like there's something in the face. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking of a story.
Oh, which one?
It was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Heidi and I were at I was officiating a wedding for a young couple, and we were at the rehearsal dinner, somebody's backyard barbecue, having a good time. We were across the outside, so it was outside, it was nice weather, and we were at different parts of the yard. And I was over by the drinks, and so they had their alcohol drinks, and they had a cooler that was marked soft drinks. And that's what I do. I do soft drinks, like Diet Coke. So I was looking, and I didn't find any Diet Coke in there, but there were some berry drinks. It's like, fizzy berry, that sounds fine. So pop the top on that, and I'm enjoying a nice fizzy berry drink. Heidi looks at me from across the tent and starts motioning to me like there's something wrong. But here's the thing. I never have been good at reading lips. I'm still not good at reading lips. After 30 years of marriage, she insists on mouthing things to me that I still don't understand. And that was definitely true 25 years ago. So she's mouthing something to me, and so I'm giving her the I don't understand look. Like the best, I'm stupid and I don't understand look. And so she mouths it more, and I still don't understand. And then there was something that happened. Her face just took on a resoluteness, and she came beeline to me. And she was explaining to me that it was a wine cooler. And at the time I was serving in a church that had a commitment to no social drinking. So I was popping the top on my, there were people, and to a person, they're like, I don't know what happened, but I saw Heidi's face as she walked over to you, and I knew something was about to happen. Right. So like her demeanor, her resoluteness, as you talk about the resolute face, like we've seen these faces, and that was one of those things. So the whole crowd knew, like they didn't know what she was mouthing to me. She didn't know why she was going. They just knew. They looked at her and knew she was on a mission, and Matt was on the other end of this mission, and it may or may not go well for him in this moment. So she was resolute. So when you're talking about Jesus set his face towards Jerusalem, he was like this resoluteness. Like you don't even have to know what's going on. You see it in his face. His demeanor is carrying the weight of his the direction that he is going, because he knows this is it.
I just want to follow up on that story. Just Jesus can hold on for a minute. Hold my wine cooler, Jesus. Did Heidi smack the wine cooler out of your hand?
Well, she didn't. No, she didn't. She came up and she explained to me. She says, "That's alcohol." And I'm like, "No, it's not." And she says, "That's alcoholic." I said, "No, it's," and it had been in the cooler, so the wrapper was really loose, barely at all.
Oh my goodness!
And so we went back and forth a couple times. Like it's just a berry drink. It came out of the soft drink cooler. And she's like, pulls it up close and pulls it around to the other side. "Look who makes it, Anheuser-Busch." And then under that was a statement that it should not be consumed by pregnant women and nursing mothers. And so fine, it was a wine cooler. So apparently I like wine coolers. And that was the last one
That
I've
is
ever
a
had.
very funny story.
It was very funny in the moment. We still laugh about it. Hopefully Heidi's listening to this and able to chuckle a little bit.
I am picturing her resoluteness.
Yeah, it was that face.
I would have liked to have seen that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was
wow.
It was something. It was an embodied parable.
All right, Jesus, thanks for holding that for me. We're back. And we're back.
And so Jesus sets his face on a mission.
He does, yeah.
To Jerusalem.
Okay, so wormhole. What's really cool?
Yeah, take us
What's
there.
really cool is that Luke is pulling an image from Isaiah, particularly Isaiah chapter 50, verse 7, that talks about the suffering servant of the Lord. So remember, Isaiah is in the Old Testament. It's looking ahead to the time when the Messiah would come and he would make a way for forgiveness of sins, new life to enter, rescue of God's people, ushering in new creation. And yet he was going to do that through the way of suffering. And so we're in the thick in Isaiah in chapter 50 of these suffering servant chapters. And it talks about how the suffering servant is going to remain steadfast despite having to lay himself down. And so he's going to set his face like flint, is the phrase from Isaiah 50, verse 7.
Set his face like flint.
Flint. And you're like, what is flint? So flint is a type of rock.
Is there a place that we've seen that rock before?
Well, so this is where it gets really, really cool.
Take us there, Joe.
Okay, so Psalm 114, verse 8 ends by talking about God's rescue of his people. And it says, the Lord who turned the rock into a pool of water and the flint into a spring of water. It's referencing back to Exodus and Numbers, where the Israelites are in the wilderness, and from the rock that God has Moses strike comes water to feed the whole group of people.
And so Luke saying Jesus set his face toward Jerusalem brings all of this online if we're paying attention to it.
Yeah. So there's a resoluteness.
Isaiah.
There's a resoluteness in the mission that's going to bring new life through suffering and dying in Isaiah.
Yep.
And then the allusion in Psalm 114, verse 8 is back to the wilderness journeys where Moses spoke to and struck the rock, and out of it came water to nourish the people in the wilderness.
Phew.
So Jesus is going to set his face to go to Jerusalem. He's going to lay himself down
He will be struck.
He will be struck, and from him will flow streams of living water.
Well, and literally we see at his crucifixion as they pierce his side.
Blood and water
flow.
flowing down his side, down his feet, because beautiful are the feet of the one who brings good news.
All of this stuff is just wrapped up in
Bible
those.
is so cool.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that sets the stage really well for this chapter here in Mark, because that is what he's walking into.
And thank you, Joe, for that. That was fantastic. I had not actually made those allusions before.
Oh, it's a fun one.
So thanks for those connections. I got to meditate on that for a while because it's rich.
It really is.
But as you said, it sets the stage for us as what he's doing, because he is turning up the dial in the conflict. And he's not just picking a fight. He's not just being like an older brother or a younger brother reaching across the imaginary boundary in the backseat of the car.
To smack that wine cooler out your hand.
So he's not just instigating a fight because he's looking for a rumble. Mm-hmm. He is confronting that which has prevented God's people from being the people that Yahweh intended them to be.
Through whom would come the one who would rescue the world.
The people who were an embodiment of relationship with Yahweh in righteousness and justice, such that all nations would see, be drawn to, and join them in worshiping Yahweh. Mm-hmm. Instead, God's people, led by the leaders of God's people, had put themselves up as a barrier to those who would come to worship
right.
Yahweh.
Exactly right.
And so in this multi-layered mission of Jesus, a part of that is actually judgment
upon
God's own people.
Yeah,
for this.
This chapter is remarkable.
Yeah.
So we've got Jesus as king, Jesus as prophet, and Jesus as priest, all just in this one chapter of Mark. And he's not just those things for Israel, but he's those things for the world.
Yeah. So chapter 11 begins with a story that a lot of us are fairly familiar with. Read it. We know it as the triumphal entry.
Kind of what we'll talk about on Palm Sunday.
Yep. Jesus comes into Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. That in itself is just thick with symbol, meaning, and richness.
Jesus is king.
That's right.
Yeah.
But he's a king so different from what you were expecting.
Not coming with the cavalry.
And in stark contrast to the way power is wielded in Rome.
Yeah, brandishing the sword.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And so you and I have spent a bit of time on that in messages and that kind of thing. So it's rich. It ought not be skipped over. But for today, I want us to look past that.
That's right.
And one of the things that happens as a ruler is entering into his city, he establishes his throne. Mm-hmm. And so one might come into the city on steed, horses and chariots, the whole thing, and then go into the palace and take his seat on the throne as the sign that I am here to rule. And so what's interesting is Jesus doesn't go to a kingly palace. The place he goes is the temple.
Yes.
Like that's where he rules.
Yes, that's right.
And so he's talking about his rule even in where he goes as he makes his way into Jerusalem. But even as he gets to the temple, it's different than people might be expecting. I do want to read this. So this is chapter 11, beginning of verse 12. The next day, as they were leaving Bethany, Jesus was hungry. Seeing in the distance a fig tree in leaf, he went to find out if it had any fruit. When he reached it, he found nothing but leaves, because it was not the season for figs. Then he said to the tree, "May no one ever eat fruit from you again." And his disciples heard him say this. Now, reaching Jerusalem, Jesus entered the temple courts and began driving out those who were buying and selling there. He overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves, and would not allow anyone to carry merchandise throughout the temple courts. And as he taught them, he said, "Is it not written, 'My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations'? But you have made it a den of robbers." The chief priests and the teachers of the law heard this and began looking for a way to kill him, for they feared him, because the whole crowd was amazed at his teaching. When evening came, Jesus and his disciples went out of the city. And in the morning, as they went along, they saw the fig tree withered from the roots. Peter remembered and said to Jesus, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree you cursed was withered." "Have faith in God," Jesus answered. "Truly I tell you, if anyone says to this mountain, 'Go throw yourself into the sea,' and does not doubt in their heart, but believes what they say will happen, it will be done for them." So he's talking about prayer there. I want to focus in the way Mark writes this is as a sandwich.
Yes.
It's not a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. It's not a ham sandwich, but it's a rhetorical sandwich. And it's leading us somewhere, right? We want to pay attention to those things. So at first pass, the sandwich is fig tree, temple, fig tree.
Yeah.
And that tells us something.
It does.
And so the focus of that story is what?
The temple patty.
The temple. Mm-hmm. That's right.
Yeah, this is a fun one because Jewish people would have used this literary device called a chiasm. Mm-hmm. Let's stick with the bun patty analogy because I just think it's easy to remember. But it's really important. It's like hickory dickory dock is a bun. 2 buns and a patty.
Yeah.
Hickory dickory dock, mouse ran up the clock. Clock struck 1. There's your patty. Mouse ran down, hickory dickory dock. So those points A and B mirror the last 2 points, and then the unmatched middle is the clock struck 1.
Did you just come up with that hickory dickory dock part on your own?
No.
That's fantastic.
No, it's just it's a helpful example to illustrate what a chiasm is here. So Mark is using a literary device. Again, as he's led by the Holy Spirit. This isn't like Mark just making these things up. He's recounting real things and led by the Spirit, but he's writing in a Jewish way. And so this is a rhetorical device used literarily. And so he's drawing our attention to the patty.
That's right. And so this part with the fig tree seems a little bit weird.
It does.
Which demands our attention, right? When something seems weird, it ought to make us lean in and go, oh, there's got to be something here. We need to dig for gold here.
Like, is this just a really ripe opportunity for Fig Newton to have a sponsorship of Jesus' ministry?
That's right. Dive In with Matt and Joe is brought to you today by Fig Newton.
Instead of Snickers, like, oh, he was hungry, get him a Snickers bar. This is like, get him Fig Newtons.
Yeah, and there are some who kind of look at this, not understanding what Mark is writing, as Jesus sort of throwing a temper tantrum. Jesus is hungry, might even say he's hangry.
He's hangry.
He goes up to the tree. It doesn't have what he wants, and because he doesn't get what he wants, he uses his power in a way that would make sense to all of us, but he uses his power to strike out at that tree.
So temper tantrum, and then he goes to the temple and has a temple tantrum.
Oh, well played.
I told you I'm punchy today.
You are bringing the heat. So this is important for us.
But it is, because he's not having a temper tantrum.
He's
doing something deeply prophetic here.
Absolutely. This is an embodied parable that's taking place here with the fig tree. So when we begin to understand that figs were a fruit that was representative of the nation of Israel.
Right. There's several places in the Old Testament where this image is used of Israel.
That's right.
And God's desire that they would be like figs that would be nourishing to not just their own people, but to the nations.
That's right. And so what's happening here is the imagery of the fig is coming online as Israel.
Yep.
It talks about the fig not being in season. So I don't want to take a whole lot of time with this, but agriculturally, there's kind of phases of a fig's development. And so it will begin to show its leaves. And then it has these little berry types of things.
Okay.
I forget exactly what they're called offhand, but they're called little something. And if left on there, those become figs.
Got it.
And mature figs. But even in their immature state, people will eat them.
Oh, okay.
And particularly people who are native to that area would eat them. They kind of know which ones to eat and which ones to leave. But so there was something there even before the fig was fully mature. And so there's something about this kind of leading up to this about the unripe figs. So at the beginning of chapter 11, Mark writes, as they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage and Bethany at the Mount of Olives. These are villages right up against Jerusalem.
Yeah, right,
so it's giving us proximity. But Bethphage actually means unripe fig. Bethphage. Did I say that right?
You did, yeah.
Okay. Bethphage means unripened fig. That's the name of that town. And so everything's leading up to here. And so Jesus isn't being unfair to the fig tree, because our English translation says, well, it's not the season for figs. Right. It's not the season for the mature figs. It is the season for the pre-fig that people would eat. But that's not even there. And so in other words, Jesus is hungry. He's approaching a tree that ought to nourish him.
Yeah. And it's leafy.
And it's leafy.
So it's a sign of, hey, there might be something here.
It's a sign that there's something there that will nourish him. It's these little kind of pre-figs.
Okay.
But it ought to nourish him. But he reaches out, he looks, and he sees, and there's not even those things. And then he curses it. And then what we find on the bottom part of the bun, the back half of the back half of the story, is that through Jesus's curse, his judgment on that tree, it wasn't Jesus seeking vengeance. It was this pronouncement of judgment. And the tree itself, the leaves were withering. It's not even that there's flourishing looking leaves anymore. The whole thing now is looking dead.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And so all of this is coming online with story, before and after. And what is it pointing towards?
And what's the patty in the middle?
The patty in the middle is Jesus going into the temple courts and driving out the money changers. Now, Mark doesn't give us a lot of the detail in this thing. And again, without going too far, and correct me if I'm wrong or jump on in, Joe, but the temple had multiple courts to it before you get into the holy space.
Exactly.
Where God is.
Yep.
And one of those courts is the court of Gentiles.
Yeah, so the non-Jewish people.
So non-Jewish people, that was where they were able to go into temple.
They couldn't go any further.
They couldn't go any further, but they could in that space worship Yahweh.
They could. It was designed that way to bring them in.
Which makes sense because God designed the temple, and his design was always that the Gentiles, that all nations would come and worship him.
Yep.
But what was happening is these money changers, these merchants, were setting up shop in the court of Gentiles.
Correct.
Not in the other courts, in the court of Gentiles. And so in the very same space that was designed for people of all nations to come and worship Yahweh, those who were selling things so that Jews could worship Yahweh were actually pushing out the space for the Gentiles to come in.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jesus isn't just pitching a fit here.
No.
He is pronouncing judgment on the temple apparatus because it is doing the exact opposite of what it was supposed to do, which represents the nation of Israel, which themselves were doing the exact opposite of what they were called and commissioned to do by Yahweh.
Correct.
Is that tracking?
Mm-hmm. That's really well said.
And so that explains why Jesus was just so ticked.
Mm-hmm.
It was not that his football team didn't win yesterday and he was a little saucy today. It wasn't that he was even going in and saying, okay, it's time for me to pick a fight. I'm going to get these religious leaders so mad at me, they have to kill me. He was going in as a prophet. Mm-hmm. He had entered the city as king.
Yeah.
He was entering the temple as prophet.
Mm-hmm.
And he was pronouncing judgment on the temple courts.
Yeah, and because
the leaders.
Because he is, I'm thinking about the book of Hebrews, because Jesus is the high priest, he is also correcting and rebuking the priesthood.
Well, and that's kind of the next big question that's asked, and we're not going to deep dive into this one, but the banner at the end of chapter 11 is the authority of Jesus question. By what authority do you come in and do this stuff?
Yeah, who do you think you are?
Who do you think you are? Mm-hmm. Well, it's who he knows himself to be.
Yeah.
He is, like you just said, as Hebrews says, the high priest. That's the one who actually has the authority to govern the rules of the temple.
Yeah, and what he's doing here with the temple tantrum, what he's doing here is, you've highlighted this for us, is deeply prophetic, and it really is in line with the prophets. When we think about Ezekiel, we think about Isaiah, Jeremiah, empowered by the Spirit, they lived out embodied parables, actual lived signs to the people that were to get their attention. And God sent them because he loved his people and he wanted them to have every opportunity to turn. But these prophets were like, this is it. This is the last one before judgment is going to fall, before Babylon is going to take over and is going to kill and then exile whoever remains. And so Jesus is tapping into that whole prophetic stream in his actions here. So no, this isn't just a temple tantrum. This isn't just Jesus had a bad day. This is Jesus is embodying the full story, and he's operating out of his identity as the true Messiah, the true king, prophet, and priest. And he's using his authority that's been given to him by his Father out of his love for his people to say, this is it. This is it. From here, there's no turning back.
That's right.
You receive me for who I am, or you don't, and judgment will fall.
And then there's in chapter 12, that's the parable that Jesus tells, affirming that whole thing. Mm-hmm. And we talked about that last Sunday.
Yeah, that's right.
So this has deep, rich meaning for who Jesus is and what he came to do. And as we pay attention to it, it ought to stop us in our tracks because it's very sobering. But Joe, what are its implications for us as we try to walk faithfully with Jesus today?
Yeah, I think I think there's many. And this is why Scripture is designed to give us wisdom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think as I reflect on this and think about the streams of Christianity that I grew up in, and there were some beautiful things and some really good things. And I met Jesus in those spaces, but there were also some challenging things and some really unhealthy things that formed me. And I'm thinking back to me when I came back to Jesus in my late teens, early 20s, and I was really judgmental. I was a really good Pharisee, and I was driven by this righteous desire to like do what's right and make sure everybody else is doing what's right by the Lord. And the rot that was inside of me that Jesus wanted to bring healing to, I had to walk through some really painful things.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying he was bringing me judgment. I'm not saying that, but just I can actually have empathy and relate to the religious leaders in this day who are doing everything that they think they can do and ought to do to protect the bastion of righteousness, to protect Torah. But they didn't realize that Torah was alive right in front of them.
They were so intent on guarding and protecting that they missed the thing that Torah pointed to and
the
promised.
living word right in front of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so what I'm hearing you say, Joe, and what I feel like I'm resonating with, even within me, we can get ourselves so tied to the things around Jesus and Christianity and faith that I miss Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah, that I miss him, or that I miss the mission, which is for our good. I'm not trying to minimize that, but it's for his glory. And he's glorified when people come to know him. And so when I carry all that judgment with me, and I'm like a modern day Pharisee, and I'm policing everybody around me, I'm preventing the very people who he wants to reach maybe even through me, right? Through us as his people. We are unintentionally preventing them from actually receiving the good news.
That's right.
Like Christianity becomes the stumbling block for Jesus, the Christ, to actually have people come to know him. And we've seen this all throughout history. Like that's not a new thing.
Yeah, every generation kind of has to figure it out.
Yeah.
Every person has to figure it out.
Yeah.
And every people, like as a body, needs to figure that out and wrestle with it.
Mm-hmm. So I think that's one thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's probably a couple in there, but
yeah, I'm struck by how you talk about the mission too, that Jesus went into the court of Gentiles because the religious apparatus was pushing out the very ones God was drawing to himself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to do that. And I don't think this means that we toss aside things that come with Christianity, churches and buildings and things like that. But let's also be aware that that's not the end result. Because the ball game is Jesus. Mm-hmm. Walking faithfully with him as a people.
Yeah.
And so it invites us to look at that in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody has to wrestle with that in the same way. I got that. But no, it's just helpful to reflect on that. And for those of you who are listening, wrestle with these things. What are the spaces where you are tempted to guard, protect, not out of like the goodness of righteousness and justice. Like God has told us what it looks like to live with him, but where you really embrace a spirit of judgment. It's born out of fear. Yeah. That's one of the ways that we tell the difference between that judgment and a holding fast to righteousness and justice. Judgment is born out of fear, where righteousness, justice, empowered by God's Spirit alive in us, actually feels like freedom.
Yeah, because it comes from a place of love.
That's
receiving his love, resting in it.
Trusting his love for us.
Yeah, and then joining him in his love revolution that all people might come to know him.
I love that. Yeah, that's right. So process that a little bit. What are those places where you're tempted to hold on to out of fear? Guard and protect out of fear. And what are the places where even as you notice that might be an invitation instead of holding on to that fear, but might be an invitation to receive, rest in, and trust his love for you. Because, like we said this last Sunday, God stops at nothing to rescue his precious people. And that's you.